Hey guys, today we're going to talk about being able to use properties of equality to solve an equation with variables on one side of the equation. In order to do this, there's multi-steps that we can use to solve these equations. The very first step is to get rid of the big fraction bar by solving a proportion and cross multiplying. We're not going to really use that step today. Then the next step is to remove the parentheses, then to combine like terms, then to move the variable to one side of the equation by adding and subtracting. None of those things we're going to use today, but what we're going to focus on today is to move the constant to one side of the equation um, by adding or subtracting. And then we're going to divide or multiply to get the variable by itself. So let's try these few examples here. So we're going to start by moving the constant to the opposite side of the variable by adding or subtracting. The constant in this equation, after we draw a line down that equal sign, is that positive 3. To get rid of a plus 3, we're going to have to subtract 3 from both sides of the equation. A positive 3 minus 3 is 0. And then we're left with, we're going to bring down this 4x because we didn't touch it, equals 15 minus 3 is 12. Then the next step, it says to divide or to multiply to get the variable by itself. Right now, the 4 is being multiplied by the x, so the opposite of multiplication is to divide both sides by 4, because that's the number you're trying to get rid of. And 4 divided by 4 is a fancy Nancy 1, which is exactly what we needed to get that x by itself. And it's 1x, or just x, equals 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now that x is by itself, that's when you know you're finished. X equals 3, and that's your final answer. So to follow these steps again, there's not a big fraction bar. There's no parentheses. There's no like terms that's on the same side of the equal sign. We're not going to, there's no variables on both sides. So we're right here. We're going to move the constant to the other side of the equation by doing the opposite operation. So the opposite of a minus 3 is to add 3 to both sides. Now these 3's cancel, and I'm left with this variable term, x divided by negative 4. So that's what I'm going to carry down, is that entire variable term, x over negative 4, equals 7 plus 3 is 10. Now we're going to divide or multiply to get the variable by itself. Well, right now the variable is being divided by this negative 4. So to get rid of division, the opposite of divide is to multiply. So I know I'm going to multiply. And the number I'm going to multiply by is this negative 4. And that's how I get rid of this negative 4 and this negative 4. They cancel each other out. They make 1. So whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other side in order to make an equivalent statement. And then I've got x is equal to 10 times negative 4 is negative 40. And that is my final answer. Let's go ahead and turn the page. We're going to follow these exact same steps as we continue on. We're going to draw a line down that equal sign. We're going to get rid of that constant by getting rid of the minus 7. We're going to add 7 to both sides. This cancels. I'm left with that x over 2. And then I've got 9 plus 7 is equal to 16. This is x divided by 2. To get rid of the divide, we are going to multiply both sides by whatever's in that denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2. These 2's cancel, and now I'm just left with the x, and that's equal to 32. So x equals 32 is my final answer. Now on this problem, remember at the top of our steps over here, it said to get rid of the big fraction bar by setting up a proportion problem and cross multiplying. So we're going to go ahead and set up that proportion problem. And when we cross multiply, that's like multiplying by a 1 up here. And so the faster way of doing that is just multiplying by whatever number is on this denominator right here, because anytime you multiply by a 1 is multiplying by itself. So we're just going to make it fast, and we're going to multiply by this 8 over here on both sides. So when I do that, this 8 cancels this 8. All right. So what is left on this left-hand side is x plus 11 is equal to negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. Now, this is just a one-step equation now. I'm going to subtract 11, the constant, from both sides. Positive 11 minus 11 is 0. So I'm left with x is equal to negative 35. And that's my final answer. Again, the reason why I multiplied both sides by this 8 is because right here it's the whole thing at the top is being divided by this 8. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So we multiplied both sides by the 8. And then this 8 and this 8, they canceled because it's like 8 times 1/8, which is 1. So they cancel each other out, and you're left with everything that was on top because it was like it was married. So you drop it down. And then negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. Everything that was on top is now not married. It can come apart. So a positive 11, take away 11 is 0. Move that 11 over to the other side. Negative 24 minus 11 is negative 35. So let's look at another example just like that one. To get rid of the big fraction bar, I'm going to do the opposite of division, which is multiplication. So I am going to multiply both sides by whatever's in the denominator, and that denominator is that negative 4. That negative 4 and this negative 4 cancels. So I'm left with everything that's on top, which is x minus 3 equals 7 times negative 4 is negative 28. Now, after I draw my line down my equal sign, I'm going to get rid of this minus 3. I've got to get rid of that constant, keeping in mind of those multi-step problems or multi-step steps to solve these equations. You got to get rid of the constant. In order to get rid of the constant, you got to get rid of the minus 3. So I've got to add 3 to both sides. When I add 3 to the negative 23, or I'm sorry, negative 28, that gives me negative 25. And that's my final answer. Now the proportion. So the proportion problem, we're going to go ahead and set that up, and we are going to cross multiply. So when we cross multiply, these two multiply together, and then these two multiply together. All right. So 2 times 80 is 160W. And then that's equal to 30 times 16, and that's equal to 480. right? And I'm just going to write above this exactly what I did so you can see where I came up with those numbers. 2W times 80. There. Now, I'm going to draw my line down my equal sign. And I'm going to go ahead and solve. 160W equals 480. I'm going to divide by 160 on both sides. And I do not know that off the top of my head, but 480 divided by 160 is 3. So W is equal to 3. The 160s divide away, and that's my final answer. So that's how you solve these equations. And tomorrow we will begin to solve translating equations and solving multi-step word problems. I hope you all have a fantastic day.